18. Founding the Village Communist Party branch. The Communist Party of China is the organized vanguard of the Chinese working class and the highest form of its class organization. The party represents the interests of the Chinese nation and the Chinese people. While at the present stage it works to create a system of new democracy in China, its ultimate aim is the realization of a system of communism in China. Constitution of the Communist Party of China, 1945. One night in April, Tin Ming, the former underground worker now in charge of public security, and KTSAI, the vice leader of the village, stood guard together on the road that led south out of Longbao toward the walled town of Changqi. Under the soft light of a full moon they walked up and down in silence. Several times during the first hour Tin Ming slowed down his pace and turned toward KTSAI as if prepared to say something, but apparently he thought better of it and walked on as briskly as before. Finally, he did speak. "Comrade," he said, looking KTSAI straight in the eye. "In regard to the 8th Root Army, what are your thoughts?" KTSAI was a little taken aback. "What are my thoughts?" he exclaimed, hoisting his rifle onto his other shoulder. "What should my thoughts be? In the past I had nothing. I had an empty bowl. Now I have Fanshened. Everything I have the 8th Root Army gave to me. Wherever the 8th Root Army goes I will follow." "And the Communist Party?" asked Tin Ming. "The Communist Party?" said KTSAI, drawing his heavy eyebrows together so that a crease ran up the middle of his forehead. "The Communist Party and the 8th Root Army, it's all the same, isn't it?" "No, not exactly," said Tin Ming. "The Communist Party organized the army. In the army there are Communist Party members. The Communist Party directs the army, but there are many soldiers in the army who are not in the Communist Party. And it is the calm." 168. Sunrise in the West. 169. Communist Party, not the 8th Root Army, that leads us in the battle against the landlords. It is the Communist Party that leads our Fanshen. "I understand," said KTSAI, still not too clear as to just what the Communist Party was. "If only we follow the Communist Party the working people will certainly win victory. We will overthrow the old capital holders and we will become masters in the house," said Tin Ming, starting to walk again, this time very slowly. "Where is the party then?" asked KTSAI. "I want to see it. It's far away, but there are party members in the army and also in the countryside. I too would like to see the party. Will you go with me to find it?" "Yes," answered KTSAI without a moment's hesitation. "Let's go as soon as possible." After that, every time KTSAI found Tin Ming alone he asked him when they would start out, but Tin Ming put him off several times. Finally Tin Ming said, "Why are you so anxious? Don't you know that it is a long journey, and a very difficult and dangerous one?" "Never mind how difficult or dangerous it is," said KTSAI impatiently. "You say the Communist Party leads us to Fanshen. There is no other way out for us except with the Communist Party, so let's go find it." "Think it over some more," said Tin Ming. "Are you willing to risk your life for the party? In the future there will be many dangers, many hardships. You must be willing to sacrifice even your life, maybe even the safety of your family." "I have already made up my mind," said KTSAI. "Why do you keep talking about dangers, as if we weren't in danger already?" "In that case, your journey is over," said Tin Ming, smiling broadly. "The party is right before your eyes. I am a member of the Communist Party." KTSAI was astonished, but he was also angry. "Why did you trick me?" he asked. "Because the Communist Party is a secret organization. If the enemy should ever come back we would all be killed. No one is allowed to tell of his membership. even if you are arrested, and the phrase capital holders, used by Ming to designate capitalists, came from some of the basic Marxist documents which he had studied. Among them was most probably the Communist Manifesto, in which the fundamental contradiction between workers and capitalists was explained. Ming was here thinking in general terms, not merely of Longbao or Lucheng County. 170. Fanshen. Beaten to death, you should never tell. You can say you belong to the 8th Root Army but never that you belong to the Communist Party. Thus did KTSAI first come into contact with the Communist Party. He was formally enrolled as a member a few days later. Ming, who recruited him, had only been a member for a few weeks himself. He was picked as the first party recruit in Longbao village by district leader Liang when it became obvious that without a party branch in the village itself the work of the revolution could not progress. The gentry had made it very clear that their strategy was to split the peasants, set them to quarreling with one another, undermine their morale, frighten them into inaction, isolate them from their political allies, and undermine the leadership of the Communist Party. The strategy of the peasants therefore had to be to unite all working people, overcome differences in their ranks, instill confidence in ultimate victory, isolate the gentry, and undermine their political leadership, the Kuomintang. Such a strategy required a far-sighted, politically conscious, guiding core of individuals with close ties to the masses of the people at every level. None of the existing organizations in Longbao could satisfy these requirements. The village government was essentially an administrative organ in the service of the Fanshen peasants. The village functionaries had their hands full solving the daily problems of the people and acting as a two-way liaison between the village and higher levels of government. The people's militia was the peasants' own armed force. On the local level, it was their chief guarantee that their will would be carried out, but the militia did not determine what that will was. It was the servant, not the leader, of the peasant community. The problem was to keep it that way, for there was a strong tendency for those with arms in their hands to become an independent political force and follow the road to banditry and militarism. The Women's Association, organized to represent and mobilize half of China, could not very well be the guiding force for the other half, the males. The Peasants' Association was the militant popular organization of both men and women formed for the express purpose of carrying on the struggle against the gentry. But just because it was a popular organization open to all working people, it required a core of conscious, disciplined, dedicated people able to give guidance and unselfish service as leaders. There was no guarantee that such a core of leaders would be generated spontaneously by the struggle itself. Sunrise in the West. 171. Nor was there any reason to think that if such a core did develop it could break through the limitations imposed on the average peasant consciousness by the small-scale, fragmented private economy of which it was a product. With 4 important organizations in the village, a further problem arose, the problem of coordination. How could the village government, the People's Militia, the Women's Association, and the Peasants' Association maintain a unified outlook? How could the contradictions that arose between them by virtue of their different functions be adjusted? Only a political party that drew its membership from among the leaders and active rank and file of all 4 of them could guide and coordinate the many-faceted revolutionary movement and solve the problems that faced the peasants in their drive to Janshan. This was exactly the role played by the Communist Party in every village in which a party branch existed. In the absence of such a party organization in Longbao, District Leader Liang, a Communist Party member of several years' standing, guided the work of the young cadres for many months. Since his headquarters were in the village, he was often on hand when they needed him. But Liang was only one person. His presence was demanded in a dozen places every day. As the responsible leader of a whole district, he could not possibly keep in close touch with all the problems of any one village. Even if he could have done so, no individual, no matter how brilliant, could match a dedicated collective body in wisdom. As the peasant uprising in Longbao developed momentum, it became imperative to organize a Communist Party branch that could guide it from within. As soon as District Leader Liang and Secretary Liu of the 5th District Committee of the Communist Party of Lucheng County decided that the military situation was relatively stable and that a reliable group of vigorous young leaders had emerged in Longbao, they moved to recruit them into the party and set up a village branch. Tin Ming, the most mature and experienced of the village cadres, was an obvious choice as the first member. As Tin Ming related it later, this is how he himself was recruited. I heard about the Communist Party when I was in Hengtung as a carpenter in 1940. At that time there were many underground workers not far from the city. They often talked to us carpenters, but I didn't understand the difference between the Communist Party and the Palu. I thought they were the same thing. Once a cadre told me that they were not the same, that though the 8th Route Army was under the leadership of the Communist Party, it was not the Communist Party itself. Though I didn't under 172. Fanshen. Stand how this could be, I knew anyway that the party was to serve the poor and overthrow the wealthy. When I returned to Longbao and worked as an underground cadre, I heard more. After the liberation, toward the end of the year, one once asked District Secretary Liu, "What is the party and what is the connection between the party and the army, and can I join the party?" He said, "You had better work hard and later we will talk about this again." So he observed how I worked and that I was very steadfast in the struggle. Then he called me aside one day and said, "A Communist Party member is not the same as an ordinary person. He must make up his mind to sacrifice his life for the working people and struggle against the owning classes." Then he told me something about the bright future of the proletariat and the party. If all the dispossessed unite together and work hard, the future belongs to us. But if you want to join the party, you must remember that every Communist Party member must fight for the working people forever and never compromise. In April 1946, I was finally accepted as a member in the Communist Party without any period of probation, and after that I worked even harder, both in the struggle and in the work of supervising and educating the other cadres so that they would not falter, take graft, or ask for more than their share of the fruits. Tin Ming's first big task after he joined the party was to develop a local branch and bring in other members. The basic requirement for new members was that they be of poor peasant origin. In addition to that, they must be active in the struggle against the landlords and have prestige with the people. Tin Ming picked KTSAI as his first recruit. Others whom he approached were not so easily mobilized. There was, for instance, the young hired laborer HSINFA, a man who had owned neither land nor house in the past. He was brought up by a stepfather and ill-treated at home for many years. When Longbao was liberated, he was working in another village and returned only after the struggle with the landlords had begun. He immediately joined the militia, was honest, hard-working, and well-liked. The young cadres decided to make HSINFA educational director of the militia, but he was worried about his past record and did not think he was fit to be a leader. What worried him was the fact that he had once illegally transported heroin for the landlord Tang Suan, a man who, in addition to supervising his many tenants in another village, led a gang of bandits. This gang smuggled heroin through the Japanese lines, and HSINFA, who was nothing but a hired laborer, was ordered to transport it. The first time he made a smuggling trip, he didn't know what was on his cart until he reached his destination. After that, it was too late. He was already implicated and was forced by the gang to transport heroin many more times. Sunrise in the West. 173. Since I myself committed such crimes, how can I lead others? Asked HSINFA. But Tin Ming said, "Never mind, the main thing is to tell the truth about it and to try and understand the root of your mistakes. Even if you had killed someone, there might be a reason for it, a reason that would explain it, and the 8th Route Army will pardon those who speak frankly and are sincere with their comrades." So HSINFA told the whole story of his smuggling, and Tin Ming said to him, "Think how dangerous it was for you. You carried the heroin, but they got the money. If you had been caught by the puppet police, it would have been your head that came off, not theirs. You risked your life and got nothing. You did not want to go. This was not a great error." "That's true," said HSINFA, greatly relieved. "It was so dangerous that even now, whenever I think of it, I break into a sweat. But now the pain have brought me not only land and a house, but they have also made me see clearly and relieved my mind of a great burden. I always thought that was a black mark against me, but now I understand that it is not my fault but that turtle's egg of a landlord." After HSINFA accepted a position of leadership with the militia and had worked as a leader in education as well as in action, Tin Ming decided to bring him into the Communist Party. "What do you think of the Communist Party?" he asked HSINFA one day. "The Communist Party is good. It has led us to turn over, and I myself have turned over. What do you think?" "I agree," said Tin Ming, "and I want to go find the Communist Party. Will you go with me?" "Well," said HSINFA, "I understand that the communists are good now we all fight so hard against, but that word party, I don't like it. The Nationalist Party, and everyone hates the Nationalist Party. Maybe afterward they will hate the Communist Party just as they hate the Nationalist Party now. If you want to go, go ahead, but I'm happy with my present position. Later, if I should be arrested by the Kuomintang, I can tell them that I am just a villager, and though I worked for the 8th Route Army, I am not a member of the Communist Party." This was honest talk. Tin Ming respected HSINFA for speaking frankly, but he still hoped to convince him that he should join the party. He warned him never to mention their conversation to anyone and later sent KTSAI to talk with him and test him out. "I heard that Tin Ming visited you and talked with you about joining the party," said KTSAI. 174. Fanshen. "No, Tin Ming never said anything to me," HSINFA answered. Tin Ming sent 3 others to test him in the same manner, but he told them nothing. They asked him if Tin Ming was a member of the Communist Party, but HSINFA answered, "I know nothing about it." Tin Ming decided that HSINFA could keep a secret and that he was very honest. If only he understood the Communist Party, he would join. Having gone so far, he could not stop in the middle in any case. He sent other members to talk with HSINFA. They reviewed the past with him, asked him how he had janshened, and if it was not true that the Communist Party had led him to his new life. "Yes," said HSINFA. "I know the Communist Party is good and leads us to stand up, but I still don't think I want to go and find it." Then Tin Ming went again himself. "I have already found the Communist Party," he announced. HSINFA was amazed. "You have found it. Where did you find it?" "Since you have found it, I will go with you, as long as I am not the first." "Think it through," said Tin Ming. "Prepare some food and some money, and when you are ready we will go." "How much do you think I will need?" asked HSINFA eagerly. "You'd better think it over thoroughly. We don't want to make any decisions that we will regret later," cautioned Tin Ming. But this time HSINFA was not to be denied. The very next day he appeared at Tin Ming's door with food and money for a long journey. "Don't be anxious," said Tin Ming. "The party is right here." "Where?" "I myself am a member," said Tin Ming, looking closely at HSINFA to see if he would get angry as KTSAI had done. But HSINFA was a much more easygoing man than KTSAI. "Well," he said, "if you are a member, of course I want to join. Maybe there will be more like us. I'm not the first, but neither am I the last." With that, HSINFA too became a member of the Longbao branch of the Communist Party of China. As the party branch grew, women were recruited into it as well as men. Within a year more than 30 peasants joined, of whom 7 were women. One of the first women to become a communist in Longbao was a former beggar, Hopi-born Husuchin, a stocky mother of Sunrise in the West. 175. Great physical strength and stamina. Her square jaw, prominent nose, and swarthy skin gave her a masculine appearance which was heightened by her bobbed hair and the loose-hanging pantaloons typical of male attire which she wore. She was the first woman in the village to bob her hair and discard the tapered trousers which most women preferred. For 28 years prior to the liberation she had lived a life that could only be described as a nightmare. As a young girl her father almost sold her to settle a debt. She talked him out of it, only to be married against her will to a pauper. She was then 16. Harried by famine from Hopi to Shanxi, she was forced into beggary when her husband became a gambling addict and sold everything in the house, including their only quilt, for gambling stakes. She watched her first 3 children die before her eyes. One was trampled to death by a Japanese soldier, the second died of parasites and distended belly in the famine year, while the third wasted away in her arms when her own breasts shriveled from starvation. When the fourth, a girl, was born to her she finally drove her thieving, good-for-nothing husband out and managed to survive the last years of the anti-Japanese war by begging, gleaning in the fields after the harvest, spinning cotton for others, and hunting herbs in the hills. Without a quilt for a cover she and her daughter slept in a pile of straw through sub-freezing winter weather and somehow survived. Liberation and the settling accounts movement were to Husuchin what water is to a parched desert. She won clothes and threw away her rags, she won a quilt and burned her pile of flea-infested straw, she won land and gave up begging, and she won a roof over her head and set up a home for her little daughter. Knowing that all these gains were the result of struggle and not gifts from heaven, she attended every meeting and supported those who were active, even though she herself was afraid to talk in public and afraid to step forward and beat the bastard landlords herself. Then she met a remarkable revolutionary cadre who helped to make her Fanshen complete. This man, the doctor in charge of the infirmary at the anti-Japanese political and military college which made the village church its temporary headquarters, was also from Hopi. His home village was only 10 miles from the one where Husuchin was born. He was first attracted to her when he heard the familiar broad accents of his parents on her lips. He came to pay a call. They talked about old times and familiar places. Soon thereafter, through a third person, he asked for her hand in marriage. Husuchin hesitated. She asked for a conference in order to make known to him the whole story of her past. She told him she could not. 176. Fanshen. Stand any more suffering or oppression at the hands of a man. He, in turn, told her of his own how he had been driven from home at the age of 14 by a stepmother who hated him, how he had gone to Peking to work in a shop and later, when the Japanese came, had escaped into the western hills and joined the 8th Route Army as an orderly or little devil in the medical corps. All the medicine he knew he had learned in the field caring for the casualties of the kill all, burn all, loot all campaigns. He persuaded Husuchin that he was a man of principles and standards far in advance of the peasants whom she had known all her life. Most important to her was the fact that, as a product of the Revolutionary Army and its communist education, he believed in equality for women. They were married in February 1946, and Husuchin never regretted having taken this step. Far from opposing her taking in he even active part in village affairs, her husband encouraged it. Cooked supper for himself and the little girl so that his wife could practice unheard of in Longbao. He talked attend meetings with her for hours at a time explaining the whole Chinese Revolution, its past and present, and described for her the society called communism that they would eventually build. When the struggle against the gentry reached its height, Husuchin's new husband saw that she hesitated to lead, dared not speak in public, and dared not join in beating those under attack. He criticized her gently and asked if she wanted to save face for the landlords. You must know that only after the destruction of the feudal system and the overthrow of the landlords can we poor peasants Fanshen. From whence do the fruits come? Only through struggle. You ought to work hard and lead the movement to help win Fanshen for everyone. She became more active then, overcame some of her fear and shyness, and was elected a group leader in the Women's Association. This made her husband very happy. He encouraged her to do even more, saying, I have heard all about your hard life and suffering in, where did my Fanshen come the past, so now you should think, my land, my house, my freedom to talk, my freedom to from? Marry? Was it not because of the leadership of the Communist Party? A few weeks later the infirmary of the military college was transferred to the village of Cow Settlement, about a mile to the northwest. Thereafter, the doctor came home only once a week. But when he came he always inquired how his wife's work was going, and, as before, offered to cook supper so that she could be more active. He said, Now I work outside and you work at home. You serve the people in your way and I will serve them in mine. Later, when we have time. Sunrise in the West. 177. We'll teach you to read and write, just as the army taught me, and in the future we can help each other a great deal. In late 1946 the anti-Japanese political and military college moved away altogether. As long as he was in the army, Shuchin's husband had to move with it, but he regularly wrote letters asking after his wife's welfare and urging her to work hard. When you run into trouble don't be gloomy, he advised. For there can be no trouble to compare with the past. She took what he wrote to heart and became more active than ever in all the affairs of the village. When militiaman Ta Hung nagged his wife into resigning as secretary of the Women's Association so that she would pay more attention to her home, Shuchin was elected to take her place. Soon after she took up her new duties, HSINFA came and asked her which was better, the Communist Party or the Kuomintang Party. Everyone knows the answer to that, said Shuchin. It was the Communist Party that liberated us from poverty and led us to Fanshen. It was the Communist Party that liberated us from the Kuomintang. As for me, I got house and land while in the past I was nothing but a beggar. I could find no more than half a bowl of millet to eat every day and my children died of starvation. So how could I forget the Communist Party and the Eighth Routers? Later Tin Ming himself came to talk with her. He asked her if anyone had spoken to her about the party. She knew that the party was supposed to be secret so she denied that anyone had come even though Tin Ming asked her several times. A few days later he returned with an application blank and helped her to fill it out. While doing this he asked her if she would give her life for the party and obey the discipline of the party and its leaders. If you should by chance be captured by the enemy could you keep silent even when threatened with death? To all this Shuchin answered with a firm I could, and so she too was enrolled into the party to which her husband, unknown to her, had long belonged. The other women recruited into the Communist Party at this time included two of Shuchin's assistants in the Women's Association, two wives of leading cadres who were brought into the branch by their husbands even though they were not active leaders among the women. And two rather remarkable young women, each of whom, though already married, had fallen in love with a cadre and party member. They were recruited into the organization by their lovers. One of these was village head Fuyuan's paramour, Shi Sume. Her husband, a local carpenter, had left Longbao several years before and had never returned. Ching Ai Lin, whose husband, Man. 178. Fanshen. Tia Song, had been beaten by the Women's Association, was the other. Man Tia Song had since died from an illness and Ching Ai Lin had married the poor peasant Chin Sui. She had driven a hard bargain with the latter, refusing to take his name and retaining under her own control all of Man Tia Song's property. Mistress of her own fate at last, she came and went to suit herself and dispense her favors as she pleased. Of the 30-odd members of the Communist Party branch in Longbao as it was finally constituted in that period, 80% were land-poor peasants or landless tenants and hired laborers, and about 20% were landowning peasants such as Fuyuan. There were no members of rich peasant or landlord origin, and there were no industrial workers.